Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today in my plant nursery as we get it ready for the winter months. So let's go. I've had this backyard plant nursery on my property where I live for a few years now. I really enjoy it. It's a great way for me to divide my plants and share them with other people. And also it's a great way for me to share any gardening knowledge that I have with other fellow gardeners. It is the end of November. I visited India recently. I had a wonderful vacation. I just got back a few days ago, and I'm a little overwhelmed with all the tasks that still need to be done before the snow starts flying and before the ground freezes. Today is a beautiful day. It's about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and tomorrow we are expecting a bunch of rain. It has been so dry here. We really haven't had a lot of rain. I'm a little worried about these plants, to be honest with you. So the rain is very welcome at this point. I spent a bunch of time yesterday just blowing leaves off of this nursery. Over the last few weeks, the leaves have been falling and I've been blowing the leaves off. But we have a lot of oak trees here and they basically drop their leaves off a little at a time. So the first thing I wanted to do was just clean off all the leaves to basically show the plants and show the spaces that are available in here. And what I wanted to do was bring you along with what the next steps are for today. So the next step that needs to be done is getting a whole bunch of plants out of this area right here and put into my nursery. So let's walk around and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. I'm not going to lie, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, but today is the day that we're going to tackle this project. These are a bunch of plants that I either winter sowed or I started from seed indoors. They're also plants that were divided from my landscape and they really need to be put in the ground. And you can see that I'm using some trays here that I got for free from a local nursery. Oftentimes you can get these type of trays for free from nurseries or plant shops, as well as the pots. All the pots were free as well. And you can a lot of times find free pots on Facebook Marketplace as well. So I did spend the time to pot up a bunch of plants. We've had some really, really cold nights, so I did have to remove the hose from my house. And so these plants have just gotten whatever water we've gotten with rain, which hasn't been much. So today I figured let's just at least get all of these plants that are in their pots in the trays healed into the ground. And when I say healed into the ground, see this pot, you can see that the top part is exposed, but the bottom part is for the most part below soil level. And what that does is it protects the plant from the very cold, harsh winters that we have. If this pot was fully exposed on all sides during the cold winter months that we have and the harsh weather, there's a very high likelihood that the plant inside would die because the roots would basically not be able to handle that cold weather. So what I like to do in my plant nursery is I actually just like to heal in all of the pots. I'm basically huddling them all together and I'm getting them put into the ground like this. And you can see that I spent a lot of time during the late summer, early fall, healing in a bunch of plants. We made a lot of progress doing that. However, there's still a lot of work to be done. All of these plants need to be healed in. All of these plants over here. Anything that basically is in a pot that hasn't been placed into the ground, it's vulnerable to the cold weather. And I don't want to lose those plants. So they definitely need to be healed in at this point. Here's a different angle. Again, you can see that all these plants have been huddled together. I will be coming in the end and I'll just be topping off some soil just to protect the plants a little bit more. But even if I did not do that, I feel pretty confident that these plants would survive during the winter. You can see that some pots are healed in a little bit deeper than other pots, but they're still at least, I would say, halfway into the ground, which is better than nothing. So I had basically left off over in this area here. And a lot of the plants that are here are bee balm. I can tell you that the bee balm that is in these pots here, the roots are coming out from the bottom of the pots. At this time of the year, I don't have time to deal with that. So all I can do now is I'm going to be taking out all of the bee balm plants and I'm going to be placing them where the rest of my bee balm plants are that I did divide and I did basically pot up, but I don't have time to pot things up right now. It's a little too late. So we're going to go ahead and we're basically going to start with cleaning this area in the first part of our project. But before we do that, let me show you some other areas that we'll be tackling today as well. This is the area where there is a bunch of bee balm, and I was making great progress with dividing them. Now, it might look like they're all dead, but trust me, the roots are there, and after we get the rain tomorrow, I know that these plants will be much happier. And as we make our way this way around this tree, you can see that there is a nice big open area, and that's where any remaining bee balm is going to go. And as we move this way, again, there are just a random assortment of plants. At this time of the year, unfortunately, I have no idea what the plants are. So all I can really do is just clean up everything and huddle the plants together and get them healed into the ground. And that includes everything that's in these pots here, as well as those pots over there, and all of these pots. And I'm going to show you the one area that is stressing me out, but we are going to tackle this today, and I'm going to feel so much better. And at this point, it's about getting it done. It is now about 11 a.m. and it gets dark around 4 p.m. I'm dedicating my time today to this project. There are a bunch of plants here. I know that like a whole big section here are coneflower or echinacea. So even though frost has hit everything and basically the plants have died back, I can remember for the most part what plants are what. So I'm going to try my best to keep like plants together as I heal them in. But you can see all of those need to get healed in. All of the plants here. And I know this whole section here, these are lupin. These were lupin that I either winter sowed or they were lupin that I dug up from a flower bed. So these also will get huddled together and healed in. And at least I know that they will all be together in one area. I should be embarrassed that I didn't tackle all of my winter sown milk jugs, but this is the reality of gardening, and I think it's important to share that. So what I'm planning to do with all of these is actually I'm going to just remove all the tops from these, and I'm going to heal in the bottoms. I figure that's better than nothing, and I have been saving a whole bunch of milk jugs since last winter. So these milk jugs, because they've been out all summer long, they have become very brittle. The plastic is not very good. Otherwise, I normally like to reuse my milk jugs. So that's the plan with all of these, and we'll see if we run out of room, but I really would like to huddle in all of my milk jugs, just the bottom parts. And I'm just showing you all the pots here. Quite the task, but it's okay. We have a great day ahead of us to get this job done. Okay, let me bring you to the final area. You're probably thinking, seriously, there are more plants? Unfortunately, there are. Down over here near my basement are the last of the plants that need to be healed in. And I'm feeling that not all of these are going to fit down in the plant nursery. I do have my raised vegetable garden in my backyard. I was hoping not to put these plants there, but if I have to, I can always heal these into the raised vegetable garden. So enough talking and let's get working. So for right now, I'm going to use this tray that I have, and I'm just going to be shuttling the plants from this section over to where all the other bee balm plants are. Now you might be wondering, wait a minute, all these plants are already healed into the ground. They're already basically rooted in. Why am I moving them? I really want to keep like plants together at this point. And since I know that one big section is bee balm, I want to take all of this bee balm and I want to move it over there. I am really trying hard to keep like plants together so that next year when it comes to selling, it makes it a little easier for me as well as whoever's buying the plants. So I'm basically ripping these out. And again, you can see that the roots are coming out from the bottom. And earlier in the season, I had tackled a whole bunch of bee balm and I took them out of their pots. I root pruned them. I divided the plants. I potted them back up. But at this point, we don't have time for that. So we're just going to be yanking all of these out and moving them. Because I have a backyard plant nursery coupled with my own gardens that I take care of, it at this point comes to prioritization. And yes, I do need to do one more mowing of my lawn for the season. I do need to put down fertilizer for basically the fall or early winter months, but those things can wait. This type of job cannot be done when the ground is frozen. And even though the weather is getting cold, it's okay for me to be doing this job right now. But literally within about a week, what's going to happen is our temperatures are going to be dropping drastically. And the likelihood of the ground freezing is getting closer and closer. So I really need to move on this project. And we are going to get a bunch of rain tomorrow. So I might as well get the plants all nice and situated so they can really get a good drink of water. Okay, so at this point, what I'm also going to do is use some hand pruners. I'm just cutting back the plants, at least the tallest parts of the plants, just to clean them up. And I'm placing them. Get them all nice and cozy for the winter months. And what's reassuring right now is as I'm picking up these pots, they do feel a little heavy, which makes me happy because I was starting to get worried with our drought that we've been having that the plants were starting to dry out in their pots. And in the spring, if I have time, I can always come back, tackle these plants that are in these square pots, and I can divide them, root prune them, and do whatever I need to do. But at this point of the year, you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be causing additional stress on these plants. Look at the roots on that guy. I think it's so important to show the process of having a backyard plant nursery and what all is involved when you have a plant nursery. Because it's easy to basically think that having a plant nursery is fun and easy and not a lot of work. And yes, it is definitely fun, but there is work associated with it. When you think about it, it's no different than your own garden when it comes to dividing plants and cutting back plants and all that fun stuff, as well as protecting plants. You want to make sure your plants are basically ready to go for the winter months. So you have to do the same type of thing when you have a plant nursery. The way that I had these bee balm was basically in a big row going all the way the length of this section here. And it really wasn't optimal. I found that the tall plants like bee balm were basically flopping over on other plants. So I've moved to more of a system where the plants will be in a section, like a big square section, that I can then stake all the plants so that they're not falling over onto the sections that are next to them. Bee balm was definitely very popular last year. I had the traditional red bee balm that the hummingbirds love, but then I also had some really pretty purple colored ones that are more native, as well as some light pink ones and maybe some other colors as well. Now, optimally, I'd be going through my whole entire plant nursery and cutting back all my perennials the same way that I'm doing the bee balm. But I'm not sure I'm going to have time to do that this year. So for right now, I'm only doing it to the plants I'm tackling, like the bee balm. And if I have time on a later date, I'll come in here and I'll cut back any of the herbaceous perennials just to clean up this bed. This is actually a great feeling because once I've filled up this tray, I will be, I believe, pretty much all done with the bee balm. And then we can move on to our next plant after we get these moved over. The name of the game at this point is hustle. We just need to get this done. And there's a chance that I might find a stray bee balm plant here or there, and that's okay. I'm not going to stress about it too much. We just need to keep moving and getting plants huddled into the ground. All right, the bee balm is all done. The next thing we're going to tackle is bringing down the lupin and getting those put in here. I was looking at the lupin baby plants and I noticed that some of them have weeds in them. Again, time is of the essence. We're going to ignore the weeds, and next spring I can come back and I can weed the pots. Now the key to lupin when you transplant them is getting them transplanted at a very small size. You want to get as much of the root as you can, and you don't want to disturb those roots. And that's exactly what I did with these guys. So next spring, follow me and I'll give you an update on how these lupin plants did. Fingers crossed, because I do have a lot of lupin and I do want to make a cottage garden out in the front of my house over near my bay window bed. But I also want to be able to sell some lupin plants. I know that they're very popular. People have been wanting them. They always ask me about them. So if I can sell some as well, that would be wonderful. In fact, when I was looking at my bay window bed yesterday, I did notice there were some more lupin baby plants that I forgot to dig up. So those will be a little more difficult to transplant in the spring, but I will be doing that nevertheless. And the reason is because they are in not very optimal areas of my flower bed, so they do need to be moved. But I don't want to do that now. Again, now is not a good time to be moving plants around. We just need to be getting them ready for winter. What a great feeling as we empty these trays. I keep walking by my lawn and I feel like I want to mow it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on little sections. So far we've done the bee balm, we've done the lupin. We'll do one more plant, and I'm thinking it's going to be lamium. And after we've done the lamium, we're going to blow some leaves off. It's very important to blow your leaves off your lawn. I know some people say leave the leaves. It's okay to leave a light layer of leaves. It's okay to leave very finely shredded leaves like on your lawn. But you don't want to leave a very thick, heavy layer of leaves on your lawn. It will mat down and it will actually kill sections of your lawn. So I've been fairly diligent about blowing the leaves off my lawn. But again, because I have a lot of oak trees, the leaves will continue falling. And I blew a bunch of leaves off in my front yard yesterday. So I really want to go and blow off some leaves off the backyard. So let's go ahead and do that next. But before we do that, like I mentioned, let's get one more plant in here. So we're going to go get some of the lamium that I had taken out of my window boxes and hanging baskets and potted them up, and we're going to put those in here. Cat litter boxes are great for transporting plants. So we're going to put the lamium in here, and you can see the roots aren't coming out from the bottom because I had just planted these about a month ago. So I had made a trench in these areas here, and basically again these plants are all huddled up next to each other, and then on the sides I will take the soil and I'll basically just push the soil in to protect the sides. Okay, we've earned it. We have put in a bunch of plants. Let's go ahead and blow off some leaves off the back lawn. This leaf blower is battery operated, so it's going to take at least 2 hours for it to charge up again. And the key was to get as many leaves off of the lawn as we can. But I really do need to then go around the full perimeter of my whole yard once the leaves are off the lawn and push the leaves out way into the woods. Otherwise, what's going to happen is on a very windy day, the leaves are just going to come back into the lawn. So it's an ongoing process for me to do this, but I at least wanted to do some of it. So if I do have time and I can mow the lawn, the leaves are off of it, which makes it a lot easier. If you have a leaf blower with a rechargeable battery, you probably know what I'm talking about. They just don't hold their charge for that long, and then it takes hours for them to charge, but it's okay. It's better than nothing. As the temperatures get colder, see that charger right there? I'm going to have to move that into my garage where it stays a little bit warmer. You don't ever want to keep your batteries out in the cold all winter long. I swear, I procrastinated everything I do. I know I have to get those plants healed into the ground. I showed you all the plants that really need to be put in the ground, but I just blew the leaves off this section of the lawn this morning. Let's just go ahead and quickly mow it, and then we'll go back to our job that we started. If you can't tell, I really don't like healing in plants. It's human nature. We end up doing things, be it in the garden, with our jobs, whatever it is. We end up doing things that we enjoy, that we prefer to do. But sometimes in life, we have to end up doing the things that we don't like to do. For me, that's healing in plants, especially when I have so many. I've procrastinated enough. You're here with me. Let's keep working on that project. Next up, we have Creeping Jenny, which is over here. Let's go ahead and get those moved. Creeping Jenny, or Lismachia, is considered invasive here in New Hampshire. So as having a backyard plant nursery, technically I'm not supposed to be selling this plant. However, I do know they sell it in certain stores here in New Hampshire, so I'm not really sure why it's considered invasive, but nevertheless, I like to have it in my container pots. And so I will continue growing it. And at the end of the season, I like to pot it up just like this, and then I can shop my own nursery to create my pots for the next season. What I'm trying to achieve right now is I'm trying to fill up this area that has been cleaned up. So you can see there's a little small sliver left. And then I'm going to have to tackle all of that at some point. So we might as well put in another plant over here just to finish this section and get it filled up. Well, I do have some wild ginger, so I have enough of it to fill up this section here, or a good chunk of it. So let's go ahead and get the wild ginger placed. Now, I know I have lamium in another section of my nursery. I also know I have wild ginger in another section of my nursery. And at this point, it's okay. I'm all right with having a certain plant in 2 or even 3 sections of my nursery. In my perfect world, I would have one plant all huddled together. But at this point, it's not possible, and I think it's okay. There was one pot that definitely is wild ginger, and then there's a whole bunch of pots that don't seem to have anything in them. I'm almost sure they are also wild ginger. There's a chance they might be something else like bloodroot. Again, we'll have to wait until spring, and we'll see what comes up out of all these empty pots here. But they were all together, so whatever plant it is, they're all the same plant. And I think this is a good lesson to be taught when it comes to backyard plant nursery, as well as just gardening in general, that it's never going to be 100% perfect. So there's a certain time when you just have to be pleased with whatever it is that you're accomplishing. And I am very pleased with what we've gotten done so far in this section. Here's the next plant we're going to place. These are foxglove. These were winter sown, and we potted these up out of the milk jugs not too long ago, and you can see that they're already coming, the roots coming out from the bottom. Totally fine. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get these placed. What I probably should do, though, early in the spring is bump these up into bigger pots, or better yet, just get them out in the landscape. I love foxglove. I just think it's so pretty, and once again, it's a very popular plant just for general gardeners, but also to sell in a backyard plant nursery. People are always looking for lupin and foxglove, lavender, all sorts of plants, delphinium, especially plants that can be hard to grow from seed. And one of these looks pretty sad, but I think it's just a matter of it needs water, so it should recover tomorrow. Now, in a perfect world, all of these plants should have plant tags or labels in them, but I know some of them do and some of them don't. So for today, I'm not going to worry about it. Now that this section is pretty much full, this whole area here still needs to be worked on, but let's go to a different section and work on that. See this empty section here? If you follow this all the way down, that whole entire section is the same plant, and that is Baptisia or false indigo. Well, see these pots right here? These are all Baptisia, as well as those pots. Again, I had come in earlier in the season. I'd taken those small square pots. I bumped up all the Baptisia into larger pots. We're not going to worry about it for right now. What I want to do is I just want to take all of the Baptisia, or as much as we can, and let's move these over towards their siblings, over towards the like plants. So let's get that done. There is a chance that some of the Baptisia that are in these square pots had died during the summer months. And when I was potting plants up, I was able to get rid of those pots that were empty. Well, at this time of year, we don't have time for that. So all of these pots that are square in the section where the Baptisia currently is, all of those pots are going to get moved into here. And again, depending on my time, in the spring, I can come in and I'll know that these square pots were ones that I needed to check and pot up plants, and I can do that in the springtime. But I also have to be realistic. In the spring, my son is graduating college, and so it'll be a busy time between continuing to sell plants and working in my own gardens, dealing with all little seedlings because I love to grow things indoors. So it's really just not that important anymore. I did really well for a few months potting up all of these plants. But at this time of year, it's just a matter of getting them all protected. Part of the reason I wanted to make this video today was not only to just show you what I'm up to in my garden right now, but also I think it's important to show you as gardeners, we oftentimes are struggling in the sense that we're trying to prioritize, we're rushing to get something done, and we're all in the same boat. We're all in it together. And I also felt like together we are tackling this project. And this is a pretty big project, I would say. So I think it will make me feel good, and hopefully it will motivate you to get back out in your garden and tackle some of the projects that are just sitting there that you've been putting off because it's overwhelming, because you feel like the season is over. And perhaps the season might be over. Maybe where you live, it's snowing and the ground is frozen. But maybe where you live, there's still some time to get projects done. So I'm really hoping that this type of video is motivating you just like it's motivating me. The good news is with this Baptisia, at least we're moving them all to be near each other, just like we did with the bee balm. And that alone is progress, because the same thing, I had all the Baptisia basically in one long row or multiple long rows. And it just wasn't practical the way that I had it set up. Now I'm going to call this basically a boxed in system. It's like a box, and all like plants are in a contained box or rectangle. It'll just make it so much easier, especially when it comes to staking plants, because tall plants just want to fall on top of each other, and I don't want the tall plants to be shading out shorter plants. Well, I'm running out of room here for my Baptisia. Let's see how many more we can fit in here. But of course, right behind me, I know that there is room. I just need to move some plants out of the way and make room. But let's first tuck these guys in and see how far we get. All right, so we have one plant left. For right now, I'm just gonna put it right on top of that. And I'm gonna survey this area, and I'm gonna basically come up with another plan, and then we're just gonna execute it. So you can see right here, this section is done. And as we move this way, this is where we removed a bunch of the Baptisia. And so tucked in here are some plants that I put, and they just need to be put straight up or upright. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take all of these plants out. I can put them in a tray temporarily, and then we're basically going to open up this section and open it up so we can add more pots in there. Now I know most of the plants in this section here that we're working on, these are coneflowers, and they're all different colors of coneflowers. Again, the roots are coming out of the pots here. They should have been bumped up into bigger pots. No big deal. I hate ripping them out of the ground, but we have to do that so we can basically open up this whole entire section and continue putting plants in here. But at least I know that these are all coneflowers. So then all the coneflowers can get placed together. And they might end up getting placed back into this section, but I want to first clean it up and prepare the area before we add any more plants here. And I can tell you, it's getting harder and harder to know what all these plants are, because a frost has definitely hit them, and so it's getting trickier to distinguish all the different plants. But fortunately, I do recall that this area had a whole bunch of coneflower in it, so it makes sense for me to at least be putting them all together so that like plants can stay together. And what I'll end up doing too is I'll come in here and I'll remove some of the tall stalks, the flower stalks, just to clean it up so that it looks a little bit nicer and neater, and so the stalks aren't just flopping everywhere. So for right now, I'm just putting all of the echinacea to this side. And I know I have some more echinacea over here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull these as well. And again, some of these pots might be empty. They might have had a plant that died. I'm not going to worry about it right now. And now I can come in here, and leaves have collected over time. Even though I blew out a bunch of leaves, they just get tucked into the sides of the plants here. So I'm just collecting them just to get them out of here. And I'm going to tuck in all of my plants the way they were and get them standing upright again. And the good thing about standing these plants upright is they will get water, which they desperately need tomorrow. So this whole entire process of what we're doing is just so good. It's so important. And more than anything, these plants need water. So no plants should be on their side at this point. They should all be upright. Okay, the next thing to do is basically we're going to make our trench. So there are leaves in here. If I can pull them out, that's great. But I want to definitely go ahead and make my trench. And then that will allow us to start bringing plants in here. And I think because it's a big area for this trench, we might as well put all of the echinacea or coneflower in here. Those are all a mixed color. There's definitely the purpurea, but then there's a whole bunch of other different echinacea. And again, I noticed last year when I had them in long rows that they were falling on top of each other, on top of other plants. Because we'll have them all boxed into this rectangular section, then what I can do is stake them in and they'll support each other. So let's go ahead, make the trench, remove leaves if we need to, and get the coneflower placed in here. I'm going to see if I can just rake out some of the leaves. Again, I don't need to get every single leaf, but if I can get most of them, that would be great. And I think strategically, coneflower is a great choice for this section. I just have so much of it. And hopefully it all fits in this section. And you know what? If it doesn't, it can go in another section as well. It's okay if we have coneflower in a few sections of the nursery. With the shorter days, it makes it really hard because the mornings are a little too cold to be out here. And you almost have to wait until 10 or 11 a.m. to really get started. Otherwise, it's just too cold. But then by 4 p.m., it's dark out. So it's kind of like the race against the time here. But I do try to tell myself it's not the end of the world. I just need to do as much as I can when it comes to my nursery, as well as my garden. And I think that's true for a lot of us. Do the best that you can in your yard. But there's always next year with anything that you don't get done. And what I'm going to do is I'm just eyeballing down this way, and I'm looking at the plants that have already been placed. I want to make sure that this is that I'm trenching it in a way that the line is fairly straight. I don't want it to be too crooked. I will have to come back into any section that is completed, and I'm going to have to basically push in the walls on either side, on both sides. Like all of this soil right here will need to get pushed back in. But I'm not worried about it for today. And the ground's not going to freeze for at least another week. So that job can be done on a different day. Okay, now I can go ahead and start grabbing plants. And while I'm at it, I think what I'm just going to do is I'm going to chop off the whole entire tops. Just because I figure I might as well. Coneflower is definitely very popular in the plant nursery this year. And I wish I had them labeled by color. It'd make it a lot easier. But people typically didn't care. They were just happy to buy coneflower, which was really nice. Normally, I would not cut off the tops like this if I didn't know what the plants were. But since I know they're all coneflower and I'm getting them all healed into the ground right now, I feel comfortable doing this. Anything you can do in your plant nursery to save time in the spring is well worth it. And if you've been gardening for a long time, then you'll know, like when you see something coming up out of the ground, you'll know what the plant is. Like I will know these are all coneflower as soon as they start waking up in the springtime. But definitely if you're not that familiar with plants, just by looking at their leaves, you absolutely want to label them so that you know what they are when they pop up in the spring. It is such a wonderful day. The weather is great. The weather in India was fabulous. It was high 80s, low 90-degree Fahrenheit every day. It was just so beautiful. It was actually funny being there and looking at YouTube videos like I normally do of certain channels, and people were making their winter baskets or their top shopping presents to give to your favorite gardener. And I was in a climate that the last thing you're thinking about is winter or the holidays. So when I came back and I went in the stores and I saw the Christmas trees up, it was an eye awakener. I was like, oh, wait a minute, Christmas is just around the corner. It really is interesting when you go to a different part of the world with a different climate and you just see so many cool, interesting, different things and experience different things. The number one thing I really enjoyed was meeting up with all of my family. I have a ton of family still in India, so a lot of cousins, aunts, uncles, a lot of different relatives. And what I really enjoyed was the food. I like Indian food. I don't cook it. And so I was thoroughly enjoying Indian food every day. The last time I went to India was 10 years ago. So I do hope to visit more often. My children have both been, but I also want to bring them again sometime soon. I think it's good for them to know the culture there. So now that this tray is almost done, I'm going to head up to where I have a whole bunch more of the coneflower. And it's up near my raised beds where my strawberries are. And I'm going to bring those down and just basically I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to keep going with this section. I don't think I'm going to record that because it really is repetitive for doing the coneflower. And you get the point that I'm going to try to fill this whole section as much as I can. And if I get bored after I do the coneflower, maybe we'll blow off some more leaves or maybe we'll mow some more of my lawn. Okay, friends, the echinacea or coneflower has been placed. And you can see there's quite a bit of it. It goes all the way almost to the end. There is enough room for maybe one plant that I might only have 8 or 10 pots of. So once I find that plant, I'll go ahead and I'll place it in there. But you can see up along the side, I did start pushing down or pressing down the soil. I especially want to do that today because it's supposed to rain quite a bit tomorrow. And so I don't want everything to wash out. So I am going back to areas that I've worked on, and on both sides, I'm just pushing the soil, leveling things. It's basically the walkway or the pathway. So I'm going to finish up down there, and also the next section that I'd like to work on is where the baptisia or false indigo were. So they're right over here, and you can see I need to just remove some plants or some pots from over there. Same thing, I just need to trench it and add more plants into that area. Once this area is all done in terms of trenching it and adding pots into here, basically this whole entire space, this immediate space, will be filled. There won't be any more room, and really the only additional room there will be where we had the bee balm. But I've really started to run out of space here, and I'm running out of time. It's 2:30 in the afternoon. In an hour and a half, we're basically going to be losing sunlight. And so my goals for the rest of the day are to finish this area here. I do want to blow the leaves though next. And after I blow leaves, I might just mow the front of my lawn. I am going to take a break. I haven't taken a break yet. And then I'm going to finish this section here. I'm going to pick up, and by then it'll be 4 o'clock. So I really hope that this video inspired you. The reality is when you do projects, you might not finish them in one day, and that's okay. You just want to keep on plugging along, and that's what I'm doing. My goal is the ground will be freezing over the next few weeks. I really want to get this project done before that. So my goal in terms of healing in my plants and getting them moved from all around the yard into my nursery is during the next 1 to 2 weeks, I really need to button up this project. And it's really has to be a priority. But like any gardening project, we do get bored doing the same thing. So it's okay to take a break from a project like this one, go do something else just to take my mind off it, and then come right back. And hopefully that tip helps you and inspires you in your own garden. Tell me, what are you trying to button up in your garden before the winter comes? I'd love to know. Please drop it in the comments section. Until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.